You. The Highlands of Scotland have always been filled with stories. They float on the mist and they sink into the stones. And this is one of those stories, a story of a woman who served vengeance as calmly as she would have served tea. It was hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and there was a feud between two of the clans, the Gordons and the Campbells. It was a bitter feud, a blood feud, a feud that could not easily be calmed with some words. And the leader of the Campbell clan decided that the only way to end the feud would be to end the life of Lord Gordon. And so he hired men, mercenaries, hard men, cold men, men with no allegiance except to coin. And he gave them instructions. One day, those men hired by Lord Campbell, they found Lord Gordon. He was out hunting. They took him, and then they took his head. They wrapped it in a cloth and put it in a sack like a roast. And then they started to go back to the estate of Clan Campbell to tell the Lord what they'd done. But they realized that when they were going back to meet with the chief of the Campbells, that they would have to pass very close to the estate of the Gordons. And they did not go on by, but they stopped. They knocked at the door, and the door was opened by Lady Gordon, who did not know that at that very moment she was already a widow. She only saw a group of strangers, and in the way of Highland hospitality, she invited them into her home and told them to take a seat at the table, and she would fetch them some food. Well, she went into the kitchen, and while she was gone, those Campbell men, they looked at each other with a wicked grin. And then one of them took the head of Lord Gordon out of the sack and placed it in the center of the table like a centerpiece. And then they put an apple in his mouth. When Lady Gordon came back into the dining room with a tray full of food, she did not flinch, she did not cry out, she did not faint. She simply put the tray down and said, "Oh, you men must be very hungry. I will get more food." And she went back into the kitchen, pausing only long enough to give some instructions to a servant. And then she came back into the dining room. And when she was gone, the Campbell men, they looked at each other and they said, "So strange. Surely she noticed. Why didn't she react?" But now she came back in with another tray of food. She set it on the table, and then she sat down in one of the chairs, and she began to talk. She began to tell a story, an ancient legend, a legend of love and loss and luck, a legend of feuds, and a legend of fairies, a wonderful legend. And she told it so well that all of those hard Campbell men, they listened to every word. They were so rapt that they did not even notice when the door behind them scraped open. They did not even hear when several Gordon men came in. They only knew what was happening when they felt the sharp, cold point of a dirk. Each one felt it on the back of his neck. And then it was too late. Well, people said that Lady Gordon never wept that day. She never shed a tear that day or any day after that. But she had said, as the Campbell men were there with her husband's head on the table, the last thing she had said to them was, "I must stop my story now, for I see that my husband has returned home, and he has nothing to eat but an apple. I would that he had something to accompany it, something dark and red and hot." And that was the end of the Campbell men. But when people said to Lady Gordon later, Why had she been able to keep her countenance in the face of such horror? She said only, "The day that I lose my face is the day that I lose everything, and that day will never come." All of this happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but it is said that at every Gordon household, the name of Lady Gordon is spoken with awe and admiration. And what is also said that on the anniversary of that fateful day, that in many a Gordon household, there is placed at the head of the table a single red apple, not to mourn, but just to remember that vengeance, when served with grace, is the sharpest sword of all.